Okay, guys, so today we are going to discuss the writing section about the OET exam. Now, let me start reading the information, and I have to tell you the best strategies and tips just to be able to write the best letter in the writing section of the OET exam. Now, what about the section overview? The writing test in OET consists of one task, which you must complete in 40 minutes, after being allowed 5 minutes of reading time. You must read the notes provided about a patient and their treatment. Then I have to write a letter of between 180 words to 200 words approximately to a person named in the task. So you will be provided with a letter writing task. This is number one, which will tell you what sort of letter to write, who to write to, and several pages about patient's case notes, which you will write about in your letter. So the writing task will be specific to your healthcare profession. In this book now, we will cover the writing tasks for those working in medical and nursing professions. So the letter you write should use information from the patient notes to complete the task effectively and be within the word limit. Now, what are the strategies that I need to write again the letter in the OET writing exam? One, I have to know the instructions and the format before the test day, so you know what to expect ahead of the test. You will always be asked to write a letter, as I told you, of 180 to 200 words, and you will be always given patient case notes. I have to start by reading the writing task section at the end of the test just to find out what sort of letter I have to write the letter and who to write the letter to. Then I have to read through the case notes, starting with who you are in relation to the patient. Next, I have to continue reading through the case notes, thinking about what's relevant to your letter. As you do so, please note that you are unable to underline the keywords or phrases during the 5 minutes of checking the information. Now I have to plan my letter by outlining what I will include in response to the writing task. I have to keep my plan brief and write in note form. So you have to write your letter using information in the patient case notes where necessary. Don't write additional patient information into your letter, which is not contained in the case notes, please. You must not make up patient history or purpose treatment options if they are not given in the case notes. Don't include any information from the patient case notes that is not relevant to the letter requirements. I have to make sure the tone of my writing, which is should be appropriate, absolutely. If you writing, if you are writing to another healthcare professional, you should use medical terminology where relevant. So if you're writing to a layperson, any normal person, such terminology should be avoided. So the tone of the letter should always be formal. Please avoid using slanguage. Don't use slanguage in writing the letter. Don't say, for example, I wanna, I gonna, I gotta. Please, this is something wrong. And even in writing the letter, avoid using abbreviations. Don't write, for example, she's. you have to write she is. And even don't write don't, you have to write do not. So don't, please avoid writing the abbreviation. You have to write she is and do not. This is the formal writing. So please keep this in your mind. Okay. So where possible, I have to use a range of tenses. Absolutely, the tenses I have to use should be correct. I have to use correct grammar and vocabulary to demonstrate, sorry, your writing skills. Keep in mind, please, that you have to avoid repetition all the time. Instead of repeating the same vocabulary all the time, try to find synonyms, antonyms. You can mention certain examples concerning the vocab, or maybe uh, um, you want to define the unknown word, but please don't repeat. Repetition is extremely bad in writing the letter in the OET exam. So aim to complete your letter at least 3 minutes before the end of the test, so that you have time to read through your letter and correct any mistakes. This is extremely important because, guys, while writing the letter, you will not be able to focus on the grammar uh, 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 um, because if you want to write something, you will focus on the ideas only because your brain cannot focus on two missions. But after finishing writing the letter and after revising the letter, now you will be able to focus on spelling mistakes, on grammar mistakes, so you can correct them. But please don't finish your writing before revising your writing. This is extremely important. Okay. So now let's talk about the writing task. By the end of this session, we have to analyze the task. We have to scan the patient case notes for relevant information. I have to plan my letter effectively, and we should practice writing a letter within the word and time limits. Okay, let me try to read fast because I think the information that is existed here is already mentioned. Okay, okay. Okay. Now, the writing task is evaluated absolutely within 5 criteria. So, to get a good mark in this section of the test, you must score well in each section. So, below is an overview of the marking criteria we need that are used by OET assessors to grade the writing tasks. So we will go into more details about how to score well in each section later on this chapter. So let's talk about the 5 criteria we need just again to write my letter. Okay, first of all, the overall task fulfillment. You must complete the task with an appropriate response that accurately addresses the writing task and is roughly within the word count. For example, the letter should be written between 180 words to 200 words. And if the task asks you to write a letter of discharge, you must make sure that the letter actually states that the patient is being discharged. So please. Now to appropriateness of language. You must make sure the tone of your letter is really appropriate. So please avoid being silly. And as I told you, avoid using slanguage. This is really bad. And the register. The register is the level of formality and technicality. So absolutely, I have to use the correct format of writing the letter, which is suitable for the situation. If the writing task asks you to write to another healthcare professional, it is appropriate to use medical language. While if the task asks you to write to any other person, normal person, you might use more everyday English or everyday language. And I have to explain technical words or write or use technical words. This criteria also takes into account the organization of the letter with appropriate sequencing of the information appropriate to the genre. Now about comprehension of stimulus. So you must write a letter for the task that uses the necessary information from the case notes. Please, I don't have to write every single details in the case notes. Only I need the information that is already mentioned or I need in the case notes. So please, I don't have to write everything because in this way I need 2 pages or the letter is going to be really long. So, and doesn't use unnecessary points, please. This criterion tests you or tests your ability to understand the writing task and the patient's notes. So to achieve a good score, you should make sure you use all the information that is relevant to the task in the case notes for your letter. And only the relevant information, please, because um, I only have to write from 180 words to 200 words. For example, it is unlikely that you would need to include information about the patient's history of illness if you are writing a letter to the general doctor, a GP, or a family doctor. Now, what about control of linguistic features? You must use correct grammar, please, in your letter. In your letter, you have to show a range of grammatical structures and write a letter that is cohesive and follows a logical order. Let's talk about this. This is extremely important. What do they mean by cohesive and follows a logical order? Now, if you want to write a letter, you have to keep 4 steps in your mind. Let me show you the steps that you need just for your letter to be really correct. Let me open yeah, this file, this one. Okay, what are the 4 steps that I really need for my letter to be correctly arranged and to be correct? Okay, let me open this file and let me explain the 4 steps about cohesive and order. Holy God, wait. Okay, yeah, I know. Okay. Yes. Okay. So if you want to write any piece of writing, not only a letter, to be honest, you have to keep 4 steps in your mind. One, coherence. Coherence means your writing should be comprehensible. Your writing should be readable. And there should be correct connection of words and sentences. Please, if you want to write a letter, you have to use variety of sentences. You have to use the simple sentence, the compound sentence, the complex sentence, the compound complex sentence. Avoid using the simple sentence all the time because absolutely you will be weak. And use conjunctions and transition words as much as you can just um, to correctly connect the words and sentences and for your writing just to be smooth. 2, completion. The writing should be well developed and I have to write enough ideas. And the sentences should be completed absolutely. Don't write any phrases because you have to write complete sentences. If you want to write phrases, absolutely your meaning will not be complete. 3, order. Now, to avoid confusion and misunderstanding, this means that I have to organize my sentences correctly. I have to follow the chronological order. If it is not a chronological order. I have to follow the order of importance. Please, this is called order, and just to avoid, as we said, confusion and misunderstanding. Now, for unity, which means you have to write about the ideas or the keywords that are going to be mentioned on the task and the case notes, which means your writing, your letter, your paragraph should be unified and around the ideas that you will be asked only. So please don't be off-road because you will lose too many marks. Okay, so let's go back to the file and let's complete explaining. Okay, so we said that I have to be careful about or my writing should be correct, and I have to write a letter that is cohesive and follows a logical order. I have to make sure to read through my letter after I have finished writing the letter. So to look for any errors in my writing so that I can fix all these errors before I finish writing the letter. Now, control of presentation features. I have to or I must avoid spelling errors, absolutely. Use correct punctuation marks. This is extremely important. You are an academic student now, so you have to use the punctuation marks correctly. I have to know how to use the comma, the full stop, the semicolon, the the semicolon, the colon, the parentheses, the brackets. This is extremely important. And I have to use a clear letter layout. If you don't know how to write a certain vocab, please, as I told you, try to search for another meaning, another synonym, or maybe you can use antonyms as I told you, but avoid writing any vocabulary you are not sure about, because absolutely it is going to be spelling mistakes or errors. Okay, now let's talk about strategies. And absolutely, we have to practice. Okay, so the strategies are, I have to begin with the letter writing task. Before you start to look at the information in the patient case notes, you should first turn to look at the letter writing task. Please, this is number one. This will inform you of the task, including who you need to write to and what you need to say. You should aim to spend 30 seconds looking at the writing task. You have to determine what information is important, because not everything that is existed in the letter is really important. Only the most important information I have to mention in my letter. The reason that you are writing the letter and to think about what your response will include before moving on to the next stage. Okay, I think here we have to practice. So here, let's take 30 seconds to look at the writing task below. Then I have to answer the 5 questions. Now the writing task is saying, using the information given in the case notes, write a letter of referral for Mr. Walter to Dr. Ensha, the admitting officer at New Canterbury Hospital, the First Church Street, Canterbury. This is the address to further assessment and the treatment. So let me just try to make zoom in, because you have to take a look at the information. Okay, now in my answer, I have to expand the relevant notes into complete sentences, because guys, the information that is given in the writing task and in the case notes are going to be phrases. So I have to use them just to write complete sentences. Don't use note form. I have to use letter format. The body of the letter should be approximately from 180 words to 200 words. So let me zoom in and let's answer these questions. Yes, let me try to do the best for these 4 questions. Try, guys, to zoom the page. And I know that you are watching the video using YouTube, but if you want to zoom the page, in or the video, and you will be able to see the complete page. So take 30 seconds and then we have to answer these questions. Okay, the 30 seconds is finished. Now my job is to show you the answers. So let me open the book twice and let me now show you the answers about these questions. And you have to know if your answers now are correct or maybe you have some mistakes. Okay, so these are the questions. Let me show, sorry, these are the questions, yes. And let me show you now the answers. So let me scroll down. Okay. This is it. Wait. Exactly. So these are the correct four answers of these questions. This is the answer of number one, Mr. Walter Peters. This is the answer of question number two. This is the answer of question number three. And this is the answer of question number four. Okay, now I think we have to complete. And I have to zoom the page in. Okay, so the section of the writing task shown in bold will be the same of every writing task. To make sure you are familiar with these instructions, okay, the instructions emphasize the importance of taking the case notes and changing them where possible to create a letter that is, to create a letter that not only communicates the task given in the letter writing task, but does so in a way that demonstrates your writing abilities. So to get a high score, you must expand the case notes and create a letter that uses complex sentences, not only complex sentences. As I told you, you have to use the four kinds of sentences, which are simple sentence, complex sentence, compound sentence, and complex compound sentence. A range of appropriate vocab, avoid repetition, as I told you, and various grammatical structures. The case notes you will be provided with will be written in a brief note form. The case notes, I'm going to show you later the meaning of case notes, will often include short words and phrases, not complete sentences, which are not complete sentences, and they may include commonly used medical abbreviations. The case notes have been written by a healthcare professional for other healthcare professionals within the hospital or clinic. So, a certain amount of understanding is really necessary. As such, as well as expanding the case notes into full sentences, you should also make sure that you change the wording so that it is suitable for the intended audience given in the task. While you read the task, you should begin to consider how you might demonstrate your writing skills in this task and respond appropriately to the task. So, as I told you in the case notes, we have phrases, and now I have to use them just to write complete sentences. Don't copy paste, please. This is really bad. Don't write the exact phrases that are mentioned in the case notes. All the time you have to paraphrase, please. This is something bad to copy paste. The writing task will usually ask you to write a letter of referral. Other types of letter which might be used in the test include a discharge letter or a letter of explanation. Now, what about scan the case notes effectively? The next stage in the writing task is to scan the patient case notes while keeping the letter writing task in mind, absolutely. The patient case notes provided will cover several pages, not only one page, and provide a lot of information. You are not allowed to underline words or write on the case notes during the test time, but you should scan. Scan is to read fast to check the main ideas, the case notes actively, and identify keywords, phrases, and information that are relevant, suitable to the letter you will need to write. So that you can incorporate, incorporate them into your letter. You should spend the whole 5 minutes reading time scanning the patient case notes carefully and identifying the relevant information only. Okay, here we have an exercise. Let's try to take a look at this exercise. Now, let's scan the patient case notes below, and let's make a mental note of any key pieces of information that would be relevant for a letter writing task that asked you to write a letter of discharge to rehab facility. We have to time ourselves for 5 minutes, and after this time has elapsed, I have to go through the case notes, underlining sorry, underlining anything which you thought to be relevant. So this is the case notes. I'm going to show you the full case notes because it is about 2 pages. Okay, now let's take a look at this case notes. And to do so, I think I have to show you the full case notes. Now, let's try to take a look at this case notes. Let's try to have 5 minutes in checking this case notes because after that, I have to mention something. Okay, so this is it. I have already prepared my case note here just to take a look, please. I know that the screen is a little small, but please try to zoom the page in just to take a close look at this case note. This is page number 1. This is page number 2. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Okay, guys, the 5 minutes is finished. I know, but I wanted to give you enough time to take a look at this case note. Case notes, okay, because we have notes. Okay, now let's try to read the information that we have. Okay, now plan your response. During the reading time, read the letter writing task and identify relevant points to include in your letter from the case notes. You should now have an idea of what your letter will include. Once the writing time starts, the next stage is to plan your letter by outlining the structure of my letter. The key words in the case notes are the words and phrases that relate to the purpose of the letter I need to write. For example, if you need to write a letter referring the patient for further assessment, then you should look for words in the case notes that relate to treatment. The information in the case notes that relates to past medical history is likely to include information that is not relevant to your letter. So I have to begin planning my letter by thinking about the person I am writing to. As mentioned earlier, think about the tone you will use for the person you are writing to. And also think about the information they will need to complete necessary actions after receiving your letter. Ask yourself the following questions all the time as you are planning. Who are you writing to? Why are you writing to them? What do they need to know? Finally, what do they know already? Now, the last question is important as in some cases, the person you are writing to will already be familiar with some of the information. So you should avoid using information from the case notes that they are already likely to know. So this is why I told you not everything that is existed in the case notes should be written in the letter. As you continue to plan your letter, think about where the different parts of information might appear. The case notes you are provided with will not necessarily present the information in the best order for your letter. So you should plan to use different areas of the case notes for various parts of your letter. So I don't have to follow the chronological order. For example, I have to write or I have to follow the order of importance. I don't have to, for example, write about information number one in the case notes, then two, then three, then four, then five. So because I only need the most important information. Okay. Now, it might be best to think about 3 or 4 broad points that you want to cover. For example, when writing a letter of discharge, you might want to discuss 1. Why the patient was under your care, how the patient was treated, when the patient's current situation will change if they are being discharged or referred, what the patient's current state is, and what the patient's current treatment is. So once you've decided on the points you will cover, you can begin to add each point from the case notes. Remember that there are a variety of different approaches to the letter writing part of the test. The outline provided below offers an example about how you might structure your response to the task, but you may prefer to use a different outline to plan your letter. As you practice the writing task, try to vary your responses for each task rather than following a set format. Okay? Practicing different ways to write will improve your overall writing abilities. I have to prepare you for an unexpected writing task on test day. And make sure you are prepared to write healthcare letters in English in the real world. Absolutely, this is going to help you to write a complete and correct letter. As an example, you might create the following plan for a letter of referral using the case notes about Lydia Frank, the case notes that we have already checked in on the previous 2 pages. Please note that you should avoid spending more than 5 minutes planning, so you may not be able to develop such a detailed plan on the test day. Now I'm going to show you the plan or the information here because, okay, wait, I think, let me minimize the page. Yes, like this. And let me show you all the relevant information. If I want to do so, this is better. Okay. And this is the information about Lydia Frank. Okay, so Lydia Frank F2 rehab facility. Now this is it. I'm going to give you a certain time just to take a look at the information. And guys, try to match the information here in the case notes. So this is it. This is all the information that I have. This is why was if admitted. 2. What was? Treatment. 3. Current condition. 4. Current and future treatment. So, and this is the case notes. So please take 3 minutes just to match the information. And I need you just to notice that not all the information is existed here in the plan, because I only need to write the most important information. Okay, so this is it. I tried just to help you to match the information that is in the case notes. So this is the plan. And notice that I wrote the most important relevant in the plan. I don't have to neglect the dates, guys, because we have current, future, past. Okay, so this is it. Now I think I have to go back to my page and complete explaining. Let me zoom the page in. Okay, so notice that the plan breaks the letter out into four separate sections and uses information from the case notes to support each section. Now, let's complete the exercise below using the case notes that begin below and finish on the following page and the relevant task one on page 103. So this is it. Okay. Now the exercise. The exercise is saying, let's take a look at the writing task and patient case notes on the following pages. Let's take 5 minutes again to read the case notes and identify the keywords. Then take a further 5 minutes to make a brief plan for your letter. So let me show you now the notes and all the information because you have to make your own plan. Okay, I think I have to do the same. I have to split my screen into pages just to be able to take a look at the information that we have and to take and to plan your letter. Well, yes, I think. Okay, let me scroll down. Okay, this is page number 2, but let me try to make it full screen. Okay, guys, if the writing is really small, please, you can zoom the page in. Okay, yes, this is number 1 and this is 2. Exactly. Okay. And this is page 3. In which one? Yes. Okay, let me now scroll down to the task. Let me zoom the page out. Okay, yeah, this is really great. Let me make sure exactly. Okay, and this is exactly what I wanted to do. So take 5 minutes, please, to take a look at the information that we have and plan your letter. Okay, you can pause the video, guys, if you want more time or if you need more time. Now notice that I have medical writing task one and nursing writing task one. And this is the information that I need. I'm going to show you the two letters at the end, but let me mention the information that I need. Then absolutely, we will go back to the writing tasks and the case notes just to show you the letters that I have to write concerning the writing tasks and case notes. Okay, let me make zoom in. And as I told you, we will be back. Now, writing your letter. Once you've outlined the structure of your response, you can move on to writing the letter itself. Now, let's or read through the following strategies to familiarize yourself with the type of letter you must write. The strategies will cover how you should write your letter and the criteria I need or you will be marked against. Now, headings and endings. Your letter should always begin by giving the date, one, two, the address, three, the name or occupation of the person you're writing to, and a greeting to the person you're writing to. Below is an example about um, below is an example of an appropriate introduction to your letter. So notice here, I wrote all the information that I need concerning the date, the address, the name, occupation of the person I am writing to, and the greeting. The greeting is down. This is the opening statement. This is called opening statement. And guys, to be formal in writing, you have to be or to write the formal opening statement. Start with dear, for example, and don't forget to capitalize the first letters of the names, and this is the nickname. And guys, after writing any nickname like doctor, professor, engineer, you have to write a full stop, please. Punctuation marks are extremely important for your formal writing. So doctor, and you have to write full stop. A professor, for example, full stop, Mr., Mrs. Don't forget the full stop, because after writing the nicknames, I have to write a full stop. Okay, so let me complete now by mentioning this exercise. Now, using the letter task provided on page 124, I have to write an appropriate heading to a letter. Now, guys, to the same two pages that I mentioned concerning the tasks and case notes, try to write headings to the letter that I mentioned. Let me go back. This is it. And now I think it's the time to write headings. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes just to try to write the headings concerning the tasks and the case notes. Okay, now we have to complete. So let me try to zoom the page in and let's complete. Okay, so let me absolutely have to zoom in the page. Now, let's practice the following or practice following a similar format when you attempt your writing responses until you are familiar with these headings. Because this is really important. Okay, now the overall task fulfillment. To address this criteria, you should aim to write between, as we said, 180 to 200 words in the body of your letter. After dear, and you have to mention the name. Absolutely, as I told you, the first letters of the name should be capitalized, while dear, and this is called the opening statement. And before yours sincerely. This is called the closing statement. These two parts are really important. This is called the opening statement and the closing statement. Absolutely, I have to mention both of them. And don't forget to write a comma after the opening and the closing statement. You don't have to write full stops at all. Please, I have to write a comma. And it's not a must to write yours sincerely all the time. I can write sincerely. I can write, for example, best wishes, regards, because these closing statements are formal closing statements. I cannot say see you soon, for example, or see you later, because this is informal. Please be careful. And I cannot say hello or hi. Hello is acceptable because it is formal, but hi, how do you do? Please, this is something bad. So we have the opening statement. I have to write a comma after the opening statement. And the closing statement, absolutely, I have to write a comma after the closing statement. There is no need to count the exact number of words you have written, but it is a good idea to know roughly how many lines. So guys, in checking the words you want to write about the letter, don't count the words one by one. Only you can count the lines just to know the number of words that you have written. Let me tell you that approximately every line should be consisted of 10 words. So all the time, the first line is about 10 words. So count the lines, don't count the words. You can work this out by counting the words of one full line, as I told you, if you're writing. And then you can, as I told you, the best way is to consider the line as this line consists of 10 words. Okay, you can check roughly this number of lines. If you have written more than this, check you have included all the relevant information and left out all irrelevant information, then you have to edit accordingly. Please remember that your word account is just one indication that you've included relevant information, please. It's possible that you might have included the right information, but still might fall slightly outside of the 180 to 200 words range. Falling outside of this word range doesn't necessarily mean you will score poorly, for example, in this criteria. But guys, I think it's better just to stick with the instructions. Please be careful. You must also make sure that you are writing the type of letter specified in the task. Pay close attention to what this section says and build your response around the task, please. Don't try to prepare a response before looking at the task, or try and memorize a letter that you can reproduce on the test day, as this will not show that you are able to respond appropriately to the task that is given. So you should also avoid copying entire phrases, as I told you, please, exactly as they appear in the case notes. You have to paraphrase all the time. You are an academic student now, and absolutely these phrases not only should be paraphrased and should be and also should be written in complete sentences. This is not a good plan for two reasons. One, the phrases used in the case notes are in note form. They are generally not appropriate in the current state for a letter. So you must expand these phrases by writing them in complete sentences. And as I told you, you have to verify writing the sentences, not the simple sentence all the time, in order to write an appropriate style. The corrector of your paper or writing can also see the case notes. If you copy the language in the case notes exactly, the assessor will not be able to assess your understanding of the case notes or your writing ability, please. Okay, so I have to demonstrate my skills by writing a letter that incorporates, the relevant facts appropriately and in my own words. Okay, now what about the appropriateness of language? Letter tasks in the writing test will always ask you to write letters in the role of a healthcare professional. As such, you should always use a suitably formal tone. In the writing section, you have to be formal all the time. But if the a person that you are writing the letter to, for example, is a normal person, you have to be careful, by the way, to the tone that you are using. You should avoid using casual language or idioms. How is it going, for example? How do you do, please? And write in full words. Don't write in abbreviations or like the language of the internet before, for example, rather than contractions can't. Please don't use contractions because, as I told you, this is informal. Or SMS text abbreviations, for example, CU like this, or before like this. This is SU, so this is CU. So please be careful. This is not suitable for formal writing. If you are writing to a healthcare professional, you can use technical terminology. Whereas if you are writing to any other normal person, you should make sure to explain medical terminology that may be unfamiliar. So you should always begin your letter by stating the purpose of your letter is. If you're writing a letter of referral, you might begin your letter with a sentence like, for example, like this. Will be discharged to your nursing facility on the 12th of October, 2018. Note that in this example, we included the date to make sure that the most important information is provided to the recipient of the letter in the first sentence. You should also include dates, times, and time periods throughout your letter, and use language that clearly sequences the time period of the information in order to provide a clear order of your letter. For example, instead of writing, the patient was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus and had on, okay, and this one, okay, and last considerably amount of weight. You can try to say such a sentence, which is this. Okay. Now, look at the various ways the second example links the different pieces of information and allows the reader to see the sequence of the relevant more clearly. Now, if the task requires you to write an urgent letter, you should make this clear in your letter, please. An urgent letter may also require you to change the structure of the letter. For example, you would need to put the patient's current condition at the beginning of an urgent letter, while if the letter was not urgent, it might be more appropriate to begin with the patient's history. The tone of your letter should always take into account your audience and the purpose of your letter. You can only use, as I told you, this amount of words, so there is not enough room for you to include any unnecessary details. Now, comprehension of stimulus. Now, to meet this criteria, you need to show that you have understood the case notes. You can do this by using the case notes appropriately to create a letter that fully addresses the task. Rather than trying to use as many cases notes as possible, think about what the individual you are writing to needs to know. If you include information that is not relevant to the task, you will receive a lower score. So only include it if you think it is relevant to your letter. If you include too much surrounding detail, then it will also make it difficult for the person who is writing your letter to assess that you have understood the task. So please. Okay. Now put the case notes into your own words wherever possible, please. I don't have to copy paste. And connect the case notes together appropriately, smoothly. Remember, you should not add any information to your letter that is not included in the case notes. Okay, so now the exercise is saying now that you've spent 5 minutes reading time reading through the case notes and another 5 minutes planning your response, spend another 35 minutes to complete your letter using the letter writing task and patient case notes on the pages that I have showed you. Okay, be sure to allow 3 to 5 minutes at the end to check your writing for grammatical errors or spelling errors. Absolutely, I'm going to show you now the two letters, but try to do it yourself before showing you the letters. Okay, so after finishing writing the letters, absolutely, I have to check my letter for errors. Once you have finished writing your letter, you should make sure to check through what you have written and correct any errors, if any. Once you have looked through your letter and identified the errors, make a list of your most common errors, please, and make an effort to target these areas in particular before completing another writing task. For example, if you commonly make article errors, make sure to revise the correct articles to use. For example, you should use in the stream, for example, rather than in bloodstream, and a heart attack should be used rather than an heart attack. As we mentioned concerning grammar and cohesion, please, this is really important. So make sure that you show that you can vary your language while writing the task. One way that you can show variation in your writing is to talk about patient care in the past. For example, what has been done so far in the past? The present, for example, the patient's current care plan. The future, for example, how the patient's treatment will progress or should progress. So you can use simple sentences, but not all the time, please. You should also use complex sentences, compound sentences, and complex compound sentences. When you read through your letter, please look at the length of the sentences you use. Try to count the lines as we said. If you have lots of short sentences, consider using connectives to join them. So this is the using of conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, relative pronouns, and transition words. Some of these sentences into longer, as we said. On the other hand, if you have a lot of very long sentences, you might want to split this content up into smaller sentences or remove information that is not necessary. Okay, so now about spelling and punctuation. So your spelling and punctuation will also be assessed. So when you review your work, you should make sure that your words are spelled correctly. If you are not sure about the spelling of a certain word, please try to search for another meaning, for another synonym. You can use antonyms. Maybe if you want to mention a certain example instead of writing the word that you don't know how to write, or even you can uh, um, define the unknown word or the word that you don't know how to write. And your punctuation is appropriate, please. In OET, you can use any spelling convention, such as American, Australian, or even a British. It's not that big a problem. Whichever spelling convention you choose to use, you must keep to this convention throughout your writing task. For your information, this book is written in the British English. Okay. Um, Now, when checking your work, if you spot a word that looks like it's spelled incorrectly, but you can't remember how the word should be spelled, consider replacing it with a synonym, as I told you, that is easier for you to spell. It is more important that you communicate effectively than that you use long words. Remember that most of healthcare terms you use will be in the case notes, please. So be sure to check your spelling of those words against the case notes. Make sure that you write them correctly. Okay. Absolutely. Here they are talking about punctuation marks, the correct using of punctuation marks, because this is extremely important. This is the formal writing. Please check the video about punctuation marks. You can watch all the videos about all punctuation marks that we have in English. Please, this video is existed on the channel. Watch them carefully just to be able to use them correctly. Okay, absolutely. You need to write clearly and neatly. So the person who is checking your writing can easily read your handwriting. If your writing is difficult to read, the assessor may not be able to assess your writing ability. If you struggle with writing neatly and in a good way, practice writing in English and ask other people to read your writing if your writing is really readable, comprehensible. Okay, now after reading through the last two criteria in the section above, let's take 10 minutes to go over your letter and correct any mistakes. So you can pause the video, please, and write through the tasks that I showed and the note cases that I showed you, because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the two samples about the two letters. Okay. Now, try to make reading and writing in English a part of your everyday life. Please, you have to practice as much as you can, because the more you practice, the better you will be. Now, each time you write a practice letter, you should assess it based on the official OET criteria. You can visit this website just to find the latest version. If possible, you could also ask a friend, family member, or a certain colleague just to check your writing. Absolutely, time is really important. You have to time yourself every time you write a practice letter. Always allow a few minutes before the time is up just to check your writing. Please, this is really important, because as I told you, while writing a letter, I'm not focusing on spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, but because I'm focusing on ideas only. After finishing writing, please, I have to check my writing again, because maybe I committed some mistakes unconsciously. Okay, problems with a grammar or phrasing. Let me try to scroll down just to read the most important information. Okay, so please, we have to make sure to understand any case notes I will include in my letter, and I have to make sure to put the patient case notes into my consideration and words were possible to achieve a high score in the day, in the test day. Okay, absolutely. We don't have to memorize anything because I will not be able to remember everything in the test day. So don't try to memorize long sections of letters to reproduce on test day. This is something bad because if you forget something, to be honest, maybe you will not be able to remember all the information that you have already memorized. So please, you have uh, um, to write, to start to learn how to write a letter instead of memorizing because memorization is bad. It is not helpful in the test day. So while it can be helpful to know general phrases and terminology to use in your letter, preparing larger sections of writing to use in your letter is unlikely to relate to the writing task or make good use of the patient case notes and will result in a low score. Okay, so absolutely, the more you practice my writing, the better my writing is, and the easier it will become to predict how many words you need without counting. This will save valuable time on this day. To quickly estimate how many words you have used, you can count the number of words in one line. As I told you, count the lines. It's easier than counting the words. Okay um, and only relevant, so sample response and the count. Okay, so this is it. Now I can say that we have finished talking about the writing section, but I want to show you the two letters about the tasks that we have and the case notes. So to do so, let me try to scroll down to the two letters before leaving. Okay. Uh-huh. That's amazing. Okay. Yes, exactly. That is it. Okay, but I think I have to show you the full letter. Okay, this is, and this is one. I'm going to try the best just to show you the full letter. This is medical sample response. What if I want to make zoom out like this? Yeah, I know that the handwriting is really, or the writing is really small, but you can pause the video just to check it carefully. So this is the medical sample response. And now let me show you the nursing sample response. Okay. And this one, no. So please match or try to compare your writing to these two samples. This is the medical one, and this is the nursing one. Okay, and absolutely, I have to zoom out just to be able to see the page clearly. Holy God, I'm sorry. I know it's really small. Please zoom the video um, in. Yes, okay. Okay, September practice. I know. Okay, what if I want to do like this? Yeah, I think this is really better. Exactly. This is the full page. Okay, so these are the two letters, but I need to mention something before leaving. Guys, if you want to take a close look to the letters, you notice that I skipped a line after mentioning the date. After writing the opening statement, I skipped another line. Then after mentioning the person who I'm sending the letter to, I skipped another line. And I have to skip a line between the paragraphs I have to write. Please, this is extremely important. This is the structure, the exact structure of your letter. So don't forget to skip a line, especially if you are writing the opening statement. So this is the opening statement. I have to skip a line. This is the person, for example, that I'm sending the letter to. I have to skip a line. Now I have to start writing my letter. This is the first paragraph. I skipped a line. I want to talk about something new or the second idea. I skipped a line. This is the third paragraph. I skipped a line. The fourth paragraph. I skipped a line. This is the final statement I want to mention. If you have any inquiries, please contact me. Full stop. I skipped a line, then this is the closing statement, and this is the comma. Please, I have to write a comma. So please don't forget this because this is the correct structure of writing the letter. I'm sorry if the screen is really small, but as I told you, you can zoom the video in just to be able to take a close look to the two letters. Now try to compare them to yours just to check if you missed any important information. So I have to thank you so much for watching and let me wish a good day for you. Thank you so much.